Fly, baby, fly.
Well, what is happening, movie fans, Matrix fans alike? Welcome back. I am DL, and it is Monday, Matrix Monday. I'm dubbing Monday now, Matrix Monday. But welcome back. It is Matrix Monday. Where we will be talking about every Matrix film, including the Matrix Resurrections, which is going to be in theaters and on HBO Max December 22nd. I've already talked about the first Matrix film. If you guys haven't seen that, go and check out my channel. It's my first live stream that I did. I had a lot of fun doing that live stream. But yeah, if you guys haven't checked out that live stream, go ahead and check it out. It's on my channel. But as I said, we're going to talk about all the movies. We're going to talk about the Animatrix. We're going to talk about the Matrix Reloaded and the Matrix Revolutions before Resurrections comes out. But today, before we get into that, I do want to say I did kind of slip up last week on the Matrix live stream. I said the next one we'll be talking about is Reloaded, so I know I probably confused a couple of people. But what I actually meant to say was today we will be talking about the Animatrix. For a lot of people that haven't seen this or probably haven't heard of the Animatrix, which I think is a travesty. Because I think the Animatrix is really, really good. It's a very interesting installment of the Matrix saga, as we say. But yeah, I just want to bring some attention to it because I know there's a lot of people that haven't seen it. And it definitely helps to expand the lore of the Matrix. And also, I am an anime person. I do like anime. I'm not a huge anime person. I don't know everything about it, but I do dabble in some anime stuff here and there, of course. So this already tailored to my sensibilities as an anime fan. I always liked anthology films overall. Because I just like seeing the different animation styles they would have for each story, and with each story they're able to do whatever they want. Um, it's very similar to Star Wars Visions that came out on Disney Plus. I really, really enjoyed that as well. And also on Netflix, they had Love, Death, and Robots, which I also enjoyed that anthology series as well. But yeah, that's what we're going to get into. So for this review, we're going to break down every episode one by one, talk about some of the themes, and overall if I enjoyed it. I'm not sure if I'll have any guests today. I did put out a invite. Not sure who's going to show up, but hopefully we can have some guests later on. But for right now, it's just gonna be me. But yeah, we're gonna have some fun today. We're gonna have some fun. Let's see. Let's check out the chat. And Cree, what's up, Cree? If you guys have been following my channel, you would see her on quite a few podcasts that I do. So yeah, glad she could show up. She said the Animatrix is the best Matrix movie. I don't know if I could say that necessarily. Because you know how much I love the first Matrix film. But I definitely think it's up there. It's definitely at least my second favorite of the Matrix films. But yeah, we'll get into that definitely. But yeah, so I have all of the chapters here. So like I said, we're gonna break it down for you. I'm not going to go in the order of how it was in the movie. I want to save like the most important ones or my personal favorite ones. I'm probably going to save them for last. So I'm going to go out of order. But it's okay. Also, I watched this recently on HBO Max, and they did stuff out of order. They put the episodes out of order as well, which I personally think it was a better way of how they showed the film with how they did on HBO Max. I liked how they ordered things there. It flowed a little bit better, and they, like I said, they put the more important storylines that tied into the movies. I think they formatted that a little bit better. But yeah, so let's get into this. Where should we start? Hmm. You know what? Yeah, let's start with. I'll probably start with world record. Yeah, world record. Um, Probably because I have the probably the least amount to say about this one. But yeah, world record. So let's see. As I said, this is only my second live stream, guys. So please bear with me. I'm trying to still figure out the kinks. But yeah, so world record. So mainly with this episode, it's about this this track and field guy. I'm gonna pull up the person's name. I don't remember everyone's name, so give me 1 second. I gotta love the live stuff, right? You get all my mistakes out on the air for everyone to see. Okay, we'll bring on down here and go to world record, world record. Yep, there we go. Okay, so as I said, this is about a track and field guy. So this whole deal with the plot is that he's trying to obviously break the world record, competing in the 100 m in the Summer Olympic Games. The character's name is Dan Davis. This is the main character that we follow. So with Dan, he's trying to break the world record. I think the record is like 8.99 seconds, and no one has ever done it before. And everyone has been telling him if he tries to break the world record, he's going to injure himself really badly. But of course, he doesn't want to listen because he doesn't want to hear all the naysays and negative stuff because he wants to make history. He wants to break the boundaries. He wants to prove everyone wrong. So pretty much it's kind of an out of linear like story because like we keep cutting back to when he's doing the race, and then we cut back to when he's talking to other people about him doing the race. Um so like you would go back to his trainer talking about, man, if you do this, you're gonna hurt yourself. Nobody's ever done this before. And then we cut back to him doing the race, and then we would cut back to another scene where he's talking to an interviewer for like a sports article or something like that, talking about how he feels about trying to break the world record. And he's like, I'm going to do the best I can. I want to do my very best, that type of stuff. And then cutting back to him in the race again, and then there'll be another scene with him talking to his father on the phone about him doing the race as well and him being worried. Um, and while this is happening, he's running down on the racetrack, and then you see these agents watching, and they're talking to themselves, watching him, and they're being like, "We got to make sure he doesn't like go too fast or whatever." So there's this whole underlying thing of like the machines trying to control what he does. They don't want him to push himself too much because apparently, if you do push yourself farther than what the Matrix allows you physics wise, you'll be more self aware of them being in a dream state in the real world, which I thought that was kind of interesting. Um, but like overall, this is probably, I don't know, this probably has the least amount of substance for me, or at least this is the least memorable of all the shorts here. I don't think this is bad. To be honest, I don't think really any of these shorts are bad. Well, there's one specifically we'll get to later, but like I think all of them I got some sort of like message or theme from them. Like they do have their own way of like expanding the world of the Matrix. But as far as world record, it felt very straightforward. I don't feel there was anything too exciting going on up until the end when when you see like what happens to Dan. But like, I don't know. It was just I just wasn't feeling this one as much. Um and like I said, this could be something that was really interesting because, as I said, that's a good question to ask. Like, what would happen if someone pushed themselves so hard that that they awaken in the Matrix? Like, that's something really interesting to explore. But as I said, this is just very surface level because even when he does awaken, like it just I don't know, nothing really happens to him after that. I guess I should establish already that this is going to be a spoiler discussion for all these episodes. I don't know if I've mentioned that already, but that's already in the title of the stream, so you guys already know this is going to be spoiler filled discussions for not only this movie, but when we get to Reloaded and Revolutions, there are going to be spoiler discussions, and the first Matrix was a spoiler discussion, and of course, Resurrections is going to be. So, um, let's see. Let me check out the chat. Hey, what's up, geeks? How's it going? Glad you can make it. But yeah, with World Record, as I said, I thought it was fine. The animation style is also probably my least favorite. I just wasn't really feeling like the overuse of shadows in the movie, and then it's like it's clashing with the oversaturated, um, you know, just the oversaturated tone of the animation. So it's like I don't know that the animation itself I wasn't really feeling that much. Um, but yeah, I did think it was really interesting because Dan does ends up pushing himself harder than he should be, and then that's when the agents that were like watching him, they tried to chase after him and like stop him, and then when they I don't know if that was actually happening in the real world or was like a metaphysical thing that the agents were doing. But like they're chasing him on the track and then they end up touching him, and then that's when he slightly wakes up in the real world in those those pink tubes that you see in the first Matrix when Neo wakes up in the real world. Dan ends up waking up in the same tube. And he wakes up and then the machines try to put him back to sleep or whatever. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then when he goes back into the real world, he's paralyzed. So consequences for trying to push yourself. And the machines are putting him on even more of a surveillance. Um, and then like even when he's paralyzed, he still tries to stand up. Because like he's being rolled in a wheelchair by a nurse, but then like he decides to try to stand and walk, and like it's slightly working, but then the agents put him back down again. So and that's just how the episode ends. You don't really see him triumph. You just it just ends on like a really somber note, which I guess I kind of respect them for doing that, but it's just like I don't know, it just felt kind of hollow to me. Another thing to mention with this episode is that the performances from the voice actors I felt was kind of underwhelming because everyone sounded so monotoned. And it's like, and it almost felt like the audio for them was a little too low. Like I had to turn up the volume a little bit to understand what they were saying half the time. But yeah, so the voice acting could have been better for that. But overall, like I said, it's not a horrible episode. It's probably one of my least favorites of the whole thing. But as I said, there's some interesting stuff in that episode for sure, as far as themes. Okay, so moving on, let's see where we're going to move on to. Let's go to let's go to Program. I want to talk about Program. I actually like this one a lot. This is also a very simple story, but it once again also has those really interesting themes that expand the Matrix overall. So Program has to do with another crew in the real world. Um, that we follow the main girl, Sis. I think that's her name. So she's doing this training simulation. On their ship. The simulation before they go into the Matrix. We've seen training programs in the first Matrix. But so she's doing this training program of of being a Japanese shogun and stuff like that. Like it's a whole samurai thing in the forest, and she's like fighting enemies with her shogun armor and the weapons stuff like that, riding a horse and stuff, which I thought that was really cool. I liked that. Um, I personally like whenever they do training simulations or whenever we explore different environments in the Matrix, it's not the same thing. At least like with these spin-off films, like in the live action films, of course they it feels pretty consistent where the locations are. But I do like that in these shorts that they go to different environments, they go to different landscapes, they do sometimes go to different time periods. So I definitely really thought that was interesting, and that's another way that they could make more diverse storytelling if they ever continue after Resurrections, if they want to do more with this franchise. There's a lot of directions they can go into as far as where it's set or what time they're set or different characters that we can follow. So I definitely like that. But anyway, so Sis is doing this training simulation by herself, and she seems to be really addicted to doing these simulations because she loves the thrill of doing all this stuff in the Matrix. Um, and I guess it seems like the crew that she's with, they seem to notice that she's becoming a little bit obsessive with doing these training simulations. So while she's doing her thing, there's another a person from the crew. His name is Duo that joins her in the simulation, and they're training together. He's also wearing this black Shogun armor. I think it's pretty cool. So they end up doing the training stuff together, and then Duo talks to Sis about um going back to the Matrix and pretty much wiping their memories of them going into the real world. So pretty much Duo is offering her to like just forget that the real stuff happened. Just blissfully go back to the Matrix and go back to the regular lives, or at least go into the some of the fantasy worlds that she is being obsessed with. So this is also a theme that they carry from the first Matrix with Cypher, because Cypher was also a person that wasn't happy in the real world and felt like he was better off being in the Matrix, not knowing that there's this whole war going on with the machines and struggling for survival. So this is carrying on that theme as well. Um, and yeah, Duo's just trying to influence her to go back to the Matrix with them. And so while all this is happening, they turning off the comm links to the real world so they won't hear on their conversation. Um, but then, of course, Sis is like, no, I'm not going to go back to the Matrix. I belong in the real world. Like we can't go back to that. And Duel's like, oh, yes, we can. Like we can just wipe our memories. We can just, surrender ourselves back to the machines, and we could go back to our normal lives in the Matrix and forget all this war stuff happened. And of course, Sis is like, no, I'm not doing that. Like we made our choice. Like we can't go back to that. And then it ends up turning into a real fight between Sis and Duo. And it's like they're like super jumping all throughout the program, stuff like that. It's a really entertaining Shogun sword fight between them. And then it gets to a standoff point where Sis stabs Duo in the, I think, up in the neck and the face or whatever. Um, and then it's like after she does that, she wakes up in the real world, and it turns out that it was all a test to see how strong-willed she is. That she's committed to the Zion and the war that they're doing. So this was a whole test from the crew to see if she won't, she's not weak. And that was pretty interesting. That was kind of a cool twist. Um and that is something, what like I said, that is something to really think about when it comes to the humans, you know finding out that they're actually being controlled by the machines, and they have to fight to stop them in the real world and save Zion and stuff like that. It's like, is everyone going to be accepting to that? Is everyone going to be able to adjust to their new lives? Will they feel? Will they be? Will they have the will to to fight against the machines? Will they be able to, sacrifice everything that they loved, just to, for the truth? You know, is the truth, worth all the pain and sacrifice? So that's a theme that I actually really liked about this. And the animation is also really cool. It reminded me of like the old school anime, like samurai stuff that I used to watch. Kind of like it's probably not going to be accurate for those of you who are anime like fanatics, but like this is what instantly came to my mind, like something like Samurai Champloo, or maybe Afro Samurai, something like that. Like this is what kind of the animation reminded me of. But I thought it was pretty cool. I like this short quite a bit. Um, okay, moving on. Okay, where are we going to next? Let's see. See, while I'm trying to figure it out, I'm also trying to pull pull up the a synopsis as well. Okay, let's go to Beyond. Let's talk about Beyond. This is also a really simple story. But like I said, another thing about the Matrix that that raises questions as well. So we're following this teenage girl. Her name is Yoko. She lives just in a regular town. She lives in a dorm, uh, like in the middle of town or something like that. And she has a cat, and she in the morning she normally just she makes the food for the cat. Like she pours them some cat food, stuff like that, and she normally comes to eat. But this time she doesn't. She's the cat is missing, and Yoko notices, okay, that doesn't normally happen. The cat, her cat usually comes to eat. Um, Please excuse the noise in the background. Sorry about that. But but yeah, so Yoko is searching for her cat all throughout the town. The cat's name is Yuki. It seems, why is the both their names like so alike? Like, the human's name is Yoko, the cat's name is Yuki. Okay. It seems very similar, but that's whatever. It's nitpick. But anyway, she goes out in the town to try to find her cat Yuki. And then she runs into these kids that are playing, and she asks them, does she know where her cat is? And the kids don't know exactly where they are, but they have a feeling that the cat went into this this area that's forbidden, that's restricted for people, that they think is a haunted house. So the kids take Yoko to the haunted house, and there's a bunch of weird stuff going on in the house. Like there are objects that are floating in midair. There's an area in the house that's raining, even though it's bright and sunny out during the day. And then it's like the kids can defy gravity as well. And it's like a bunch of weird stuff like that's happening. So Yoko and the kids like are just messing with stuff at the haunted house, and Yoko's still trying to find her cat. And while this is happening, there's like this giant truck that's on the way to the house. It looks like it's about to shut down the whole facility. But so yeah, so the truck's on the way to the house, but all the kids are still playing there. Um, and then Yoko eventually does find the cat at the house. So that's cool. They end up finding the cat, but yeah, they're still messing around with weird stuff going on. As I said, the kids still doing a defying gravity type thing, and I think one of the kids bleeds when they're messing with the gravity stuff. So it's a lot of weird stuff. But but yeah, the truck that's eventually comes to the house, and then it shuts down the whole area pretty much. And it turns out that it's led by one of the agents. And so they take Yoko and her cat and just takes them away. And I think, do they wipe their memory? I think they do wipe her memory, right? Wipe everyone's memory of it. And then they go off their normal day. Um, so what it turns out that all those weird occurrences that are happening at the house, it's not because it was haunted, it's because there are glitches in the Matrix. If you guys remember in the first movie that when Morpheus, Trinity, Neo, all the crew were trying to head back to the real world after taking Neo to see the Oracle, and they're going up in the building, whatever, and Neo sees a cat in one of the hallways, and then he sees the cat again going down the hallway, and then he's like deja vu, and then all Morpheus and everyone freaked out. It's like, what did you just say? He's like, nothing, a little deja vu. And then it turns out that deja vu is usually a glitch in the Matrix, and it happens when they change something, when the machines change something in the program. Um, but yeah, so I guess this is an occurrence where like this is not exactly because the machines were changing stuff, but it's because it's just like something just went haywire in the system of the Matrix, and they didn't instantly fix the problem, and so weird stuff is happening in that area, that's not supposed to. So once again, this is kind of a really simple story. Like, there's not really too much to break down with that, but I guess it's just showing like what would happen if there were just random glitches in the Matrix, and how do the programs respond to that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. There's not a bunch of action going on in this one. It's just like a simple, like, just a simple story following a teenager doing her thing. Um, I will admit it did feel a little bit anticlimactic, just like World Record. Like it once again just ends off on a. It's not so much of a somber note as World Record, but it's just like it just ends after the agents take Yoko away, and they just don't address it anymore. So it's just go around this, what they usually do in the Matrix, and that's it. Um, so yeah, I mean it's fine. It's a fine short. Not as much to break down, but once again, thought it was interesting concept for them to explore. So okay, moving on. Let's see where we're going to go to next. Um, hmm. Yeah, let's talk about a detective story. Talk about that. I definitely like this one as well. So detective story. Let's see. Let me pull up. This stuff. There we go. So apparently this one takes place in a dystopian future. So it's not supposed to be in the same timeline as what happens in the live action films. I guess it's a different time period, which is kind of interesting because Trinity's is in this episode. But just whatever. What a lot of things could happen in the Matrix. But so this is a noir type of story, detective noir story, which I thought that's also really cool. As I said, it's a lot of directions that can go when it comes to where things can be set in the Matrix. Like, they don't just have to be set in one type of time period or one type of atmosphere. So I thought, okay, a Matrix noir story. I think that'd be really interesting. So yeah, so we're following this detective. His name's Ash. I wouldn't be surprised if they got inspiration from another anime whose character's name is Ash. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. Anyway, so the detective Ash is doing his thing. He's down on his luck detective, and then one day he gets a anonymous phone call from a hacker going by who is Trinity. Um, and then Ash starts looking for her. Very similar to how Neo is trying to look for Morpheus and Trinity in the first movie. Um, but then also he gets another call from agents who are also trying to find Trinity, and so they try to get him to uh, take down Trinity because they tell her that that she's a terrorist and she's dangerous and she shouldn't be trusted and stuff like that. So it's this whole thing of Ash trying to find Trinity. And yeah, I definitely like the atmosphere of this short, and definitely the animation style really fit the noir type of tone that they were establishing, and the voiceover from Ash. I thought that was really really cool. Um, and it's black and white as well. I definitely liked that they went black and white for this one. I know a lot, black and white is not as appreciated nowadays with modern movies, modern storytelling. A lot of people would probably prefer to do stuff in color, but I liked that this time around they were like, we're gonna do a black and white. And there are other movies that I've seen recently that really incorporated black and white really well, like Logan. They had like a black and white version. I thought that was pretty cool. And then Zack Snyder's Justice League had the Justice is Gray version where that was black and white and it looked really cool. I just wish people, appreciated black and white a little bit more. I really do like that aesthetic. It doesn't work for every film, obviously, but there's certain films where it could, it will fit with it really well. Another type of movie I think would have fit with the black and white aesthetic is Blade Runner. I think I don't know why Blade Runner never did a black and white version. I think it would be really cool, specifically with Blade Runner 2049. I think it would be cool if they did a black and white version of that. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Blade Runner, I'm gonna be honest. Not a huge fan, especially the first movie. I didn't like the first movie at all. Blade Runner 2049, I think, is an improvement. There's some really cool things about it, but once again, I wasn't blown away by the story. But as far as detective noir stuff, I think the detective noir stuff could have worked really good if the story was a little bit more engaging. I know I'm in the minority on that, but yeah. But anyway, back to the detective story. So Ash ends up running into Trinity, and then it turns out that Trinity tells him that he's being manipulated and controlled by the agents, and then she pulls out this gun that extracts like a bug thing out of his eye, and I'm like, oh god, geez, that was nuts. If you guys didn't like the belly button stuff in the first movie with that little squid thing going in Neil's belly button, it's a similar thing with this, except it comes out of his eye, which is that was nasty, really really nasty. But yeah, so when she does that, then she finds out that the agents were just setting him up. And then the agents end up showing up and trying to shoot down both of them. They end up meeting on a train. So the agents are chasing after Ash and Trinity. And then I think Ash ends up getting shot by the agents. And then I don't know if it was me, but it felt like they were kind of setting up that Ash was a possible person to become the one. I don't know if it was me, but I kind of felt that watching this, especially with how Trinity acts towards him. If he wasn't going to end up being the one, I think for sure he was trying to unplug him and bring him to the real world, which I think that would have been really cool. In a live action movie, I think Ash would have brought a different dynamic, especially because he's a man out of time, you know. So I don't know. I thought that would have been cool. I wish he didn't get killed, and maybe there would have been a possibility to see him in a live action movie, but it's fine. It's definitely an interesting question to ask if he was a possible person to become the one if it wasn't Neo. You know, especially because Ash does seem a little bit more heroic than Neo, and like a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more edgier, I guess. So that's a really interesting question to ask. If Neo wasn't going to end up being the one, would he be? So I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Comment. Let me know. All right, moving on. Let's go to. Oh, is it this episode? Yeah, I guess we got to talk about this one. Okay, so let's talk about Matriculated. Okay, so this one's my least favorite. I'm gonna be real honest. Matriculated is my least favorite short of this. I don't really like it that much, to be honest. This is probably the one of the shorts where it's like I didn't really care for this at all. Like I said, there are some interesting concepts that they bring up in this short, but the execution just wasn't there. And it's a shame because like probably would have ended up being one of the best. But I don't know, I just felt like it kind of lost its way halfway through. Not even halfway through, by the time the quarter way in, I'm just like, what's going on? Okay, so with this short, um, so it deals with another group in the real world, and it's like they're above ground, so they're not in they're not in like the tunnels and stuff that we see from the movies. They're operating above ground, and this group is trying to capture machines, just random hostile machines that they run into. And their overall plan is that they're trying to take the captured machines and put positive traits into them. So they're trying to pretty much hack the machines so they can turn them good. So this is actually a really, really interesting concept. Like, what would happen if the machines, were hacked and turned to the good side, like they became allies of the humans? This is actually a really interesting concept to bring up, but the way they tell it in the story is just there's no substance. There's just none. You have a really good setup here, but it's like they don't do anything with it. So they end up capturing one of these machines, and it's like they have this whole like base with the I mean, they have like the plugs like they do with on their ships, where they can, go into the matrix, but it's like they're in this like random base above ground, and it has a pool or whatever. And it was just a really weird setup how they were doing it. But so all the humans, like, they gather around the pool with the needles, and that's how they sing into the matrix. And then they have the robot like attached to some wires as well, and that's how they sync them in. And it's like when they get synced in, it's like they don't get they transported into this like psychedelic program training program. I don't know what it is. Like, it's just really trippy acid trip type of environment. I don't know what to describe it. It's a whole bunch of bright yellows and greens and blues and reds. It's just really weird. And then all the group, when they're in this program, it's like they don't look like themselves. They look like figments of that trippy world. And when they have the machine synced into that program, it's like it turns into like this weird alien humanoid type of thing. And like the whole time, like the machine is like following the group in that psychedelic world, and they're just like doing all these weird, like, sensual stuff. And it's like they're laughing, it's like and they're running around these weird hallways and stuff like that. There's like no dialogue going on either. So like there's no context about what's happening. Excuse me 1 second. Let me grab some water. Ah. Sorry about that. I was talking a lot. But anyway, so the machine is like following this group around this maze, this psychedelic maze that they created. And it's like they're just acting so weird and sensual and hyper. And it's like I just didn't know what was going on. Like, was this their way of showing the positive traits of humanity? This is how they were doing it? Because before they get synced into there, like, they're actually talking about how they can do this. Like, when they're capturing the machine, they're talking about how they can use these programs to put different programming to them and stuff like that. And it made it seem like it was very logical, and like something that could be a possibility is like they actually were using actual like physical like tangible methods, but it's like when they actually have them synced into this thing, it's like it just doesn't make any sense. Like, what is the machine supposed to learn from this? As I said, there's no dialogue when they go into this world, and so like there's no context given to the machine. Like the group never talks to the machine in the world. Like I just don't understand what they were doing. Like I'm sure they were trying to make it like a metaphorical type thing. I guess it's supposed to symbolize positivity and happiness, that psychedelic world, but it just didn't come across as natural as it should have, in my opinion. Um, and then so while this is happening, there are other rogue machines that find their base of operations, and then they invade the base, and then like the group gets into this to this fight with the machines, and then like the one machine that they capture is like struggling to figure out if he wants to help the humans or not, and then all the machines slowly kill off every all the people in the group. The main girl, the main girl that I think her name is Alexa. I think that's her name. So she's the last one standing, but she ends up getting killed by the machines, I think. And then the machine that they capture ends up helping Alexa and kills one of the other rogue machines, whatever. And then when all that's done, everyone's dead. Like they brutally got killed by these machines, and it's just Alexa holding on for dear life. And then the good machine, I guess, tries to sink her back into the psychedelic world, and he the machine sinks itself back into the psychedelic world with her. But when they go back in there, like Alexa's avatar starts freaking out and running away, and then the machine starts getting sad, and then it goes back into the real world. Alexa ends up dying in the psychedelic world, and then the machine like gets out, and then he goes back to the surface, and then he's just sitting there looking at the horizon. Well, that's not really a horizon because it's the real world. It's all apocalyptic and stuff. But he's looking across the fields, whatever, or the mountains, or what, I don't know where exactly they were. He's just sitting there pondering, and it seems like they were trying to make that moment feel very powerful, but I just didn't really feel anything. Like I don't know, because like I said, there's no context with the psychedelic world that they're in. They don't really actually show him the goodness of humanity. It's just showed like it's supposed to be metaphorical, whatever they were doing in there, just like being all happy and sensual, and that's supposed to show the humanity side, the positive stuff. Like the machine shouldn't be rogue and evil. I don't know. I just felt like this could have been much more powerful than what it actually was. Um, but I don't know. The animation I thought was, I mean, it was cool, but I don't know. It seemed the the most off out of all the shorts. It just seemed the weirdest. It seemed the most out of place. So like as a short by itself, I mean, I still probably wouldn't like it that much because there's not a lot of story. But it's just like I don't know. I just I wasn't really feeling this one at all. Um, I was really disappointed because I said this was a really interesting setup. Like, what would happen if the machines were good, or if they programmed the machines to be good and become allies? That's actually something really cool that they can explore. And honestly, this is something I hope that they touch on in the live action movies if they ever get to that point after Resurrections. If that's the story they want to tell, I think that's something they should go into. But like the way they were doing it in this short, it wasn't really that good to me. Okay. Um Moving on. Okay, so now we get to the main three I want to talk about. So these last three actually tie into the storylines with the live action movies. And honestly, these three are probably my personal favorites. So, real excited to get into these. So let's start with. Well, I would say the main these three will be the main events. So let's start with Kid Story. Kid Story. Okay, so with this one, it follows. If you guys have seen Reloaded and Revolutions, you guys have seen this character. It's the annoying kid that is obsessed with Neo, and he talks about how he saved him from the Matrix. That Neo was the one to bring him to the real world, and Neo's like, "No, you saved yourself, kid." So it follows that. It follows that kid. I'll be real. I wasn't really the biggest fan of him in the, Reloaded and Revolutions. Um, I mean, and then it's like the whole thing of him talking about how Neo saved him. We never see that, and it's like we don't really see how he did. He just keeps talking about it. So I wish that there was more to his character, give him more development, just to so he come off of more than just being that annoying fanboy of Neo. But in this one, actually give a little bit more context. Does this make him a better character? Not necessarily, but at least they give him more development in this. So it's following this kid. I guess his name is Matthew. I think at least that's his name in the Matrix. But yeah, so it's following him. He's at home on his computer, and he's talking to someone through the. Oh wait, no, his name is Michael. I'm sorry, not Matthew. His name is Michael. My bad. But so we follow him on his computer, and he's talking to someone through the computer, very similar to how um Morpheus and Trinity were talking to Neo on the computer in the first movie. But Michael is talking about how he feels like he feels like something is off. Like he doesn't feel like he's actually living. Like he's feeling like he's trapped, I guess. And that's what he's talking to this anonymous person through the computer. Um and then it's like he's giving hints that, the person through the computer is giving him hints that, like, if you want to break from this world, that you gotta look beyond, I guess, whatever. It's like he's not giving him too much, he's just giving really subtle hints. And also when he goes to sleep, he sees like these visions of him falling off of a building, and I guess that's supposed to be the context of how he gets into the real world, I guess. Oh wait, we have another guest. Finally, we have a guest joining with me once again. We have Ambassador. What's going on, man?
Hey, DL, I am sorry, bud. I had a very early morning this morning, and I got home and I crashed for a while, and I realized I was like, "Oh crap, I'm missing DL's stream." So, my apologies for being late, but good to be here. Which episode of Animatrix are you discussing right now?
We're discussing Kid Story.
Okay. Oh, that's a good one. Good one. Good. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
I
Good.
left.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, I went
Excellent.
through most of them already. I'm leaving like the main three that ties into the actual movies. I'm saving them for last, so I just got to them. So,
Okay. Excellent. So
but
you
we
haven't
can.
done you haven't
Yeah,
done Second Renaissance then,
haven't done that yet. But
or have you?
since you're here, I do
Okay,
want to get your.
excellent.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
sure. Hmm.
since you're here, I do want to get your quick thoughts on some of on the other ones. So we've already talked
Okay.
about World Record. What did you think about World Record?
Um, I will say this. I the animation style of this one is very reminiscent of one of my favorite um animated series from the 1990s, and I think it was done by it might have been done by the same studio. It was the same studio that did the episode Matriculated. I know you probably covered that one already as well, and that was the series Eon Flux. The whole premise behind World Record is a very intriguing one. I love the narrative style, they do it primarily in flashback as the racer is, or the runner is talking about going for his next big run at the, I'm assuming it's some sort of Olympic trial or whatever. And it's a very fascinating premise that they explore, with the fact that someone doesn't necessarily have to be made aware of the existence of the Matrix, but the fact that if their mind, or they are in such top peak physical condition, that they do become aware of the Matrix. So world record, like I said, the not only the narrative style, but also the animation style is, like I said, reminiscent of Eon Flux, which is I think is a very underrated and sometimes very lacking in discussion in terms of its impact upon animation from the 90s and just anime in general, because it was a series I absolutely loved. I know it was very cutting edge and somewhat controversial in certain respects for time, but yeah, as with all of the episodes of the Animatrix, it is a favorite of mine. So
I did say like this was probably my lesser favorite ones. I didn't think first of all, I don't think really any of these shorts are bad, other than matriculated. But I do think with all of these shorts, they do each have a theme that helps expand the lore and the universe of the Matrix. So I always get something
yes,
out of each of these. But like, yeah, I said this one felt really straightforward as from a story perspective. Like, there's not like too much to break down with it. And
yeah.
it ends up on a really somber note as well, like with him being paralyzed.
Well,
and stuff
somber,
like
but
that.
also somewhat hopeful, for the simple fact that the runner, I think he does. I think he was on the verge again of breaking free, even though his digital self was somewhat crippled. I think his actual physical mind was still rather strong. So I think what we see at the end of that episode is him actually, I think his physical form in the real world breaking free. So maybe he did actually get out, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. And what do you think about Program?
Again, another, I will say this from just a pure appreciation for the animation style. It's stunning. It's beautiful. For me, of all of these, Program is like poetry in motion. And obviously the concept of them testing newly freed minds to see if they would consider ever going back. And you have to ask yourself this question: did Cypher pass this test? And
That's the
if
question.
not, if not, then why didn't Morpheus and the crew keep a closer eye on Cypher? But yeah, the whole concept of, if a person who had just been awakened or had been awakened goes through this program and they are tested to see if they do want to go back to the real world rather than staying, or go back into the Matrix, rather staying instead of staying in the real world. For me, it's the whole that whole discussion right there is a truly interesting one, because it raises the point that maybe Cypher, in some degree, to some degree, was right. I mean, if you got so much easier in the Matrix, it's almost like the old saying, "Ignorance is bliss."
Mm-hmm.
And Cypher says, "I don't want to remember anything of the real world, nothing, because it is such a miserable and awful existence. Why would anybody want to live this way?"
Right.
So with Program, it's a further exploration of that whole concept. And of course, the main character, I think her name is Sis.
Yes.
She does decide that no, she would rather remain free than remain a slave and ignorant to what is really going on in the world around her.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right, and then we have Beyond. Think about that one.
this one was and to the chat, Daniel Martin. Yeah, that steak looked pretty. Yes, it did. Yes, my man,
Yeah,
it
that steak
did.
did look really good. Even though I
Oh
liked mine
man,
a little bit more pink than what he had, but like it still looked good. I mean, a little bit less
yeah,
pink than what he had, but you know.
yeah. Well, mine. I just quick aside. I am a medium, maybe medium rare on how I like my steaks done. So, but that's aside. Just quick aside. Beyond
I'm
is.
I'm the one dude that likes medium well to well done steaks. Yes, I'm a serial killer. Thank you.
Yes, you are. Hang your head in shame. How dare you not like any pink in your steak?
I don't.
But as but as with Beyond, um, it brings up an interesting point of what happens if the Matrix does glitch and how often does glitch. Because if you consider just how complex of a program the Matrix is, glitches are going to happen. Now, the whole concept of the story itself is it's rather novel. It's as you say, there's not a whole lot there to deep dive into per se, but it does present the idea that the machines have figured out a way to clean up glitches in the Matrix, and it kind of robs the perceived magic of the world around them because the kids and the young woman who goes looking for her cat and everything were like, this place was really, really cool, and now the machines have fixed the glitch and that magic is gone. So, but yeah, I liked Beyond. It's not a very heavily philosophical episode as with some of the other installments in the Animatrix, but it's a cool one. It is.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Detective Story, which they want that.
Oh, that right there is in like my. It's in like my top. I can't remember how. I think it's what 9 shorts in the
It's
Animatrix
9 of them,
total.
yeah.
This one is in my top 5. I think it's right at the like in the middle of my top 5 because I love the animation style. I love the fact that you have this. I've always been a huge fan of detective stories and film noir stories, and the fact that you have something like this in the Animatrix, a story like this, the whole idea that maybe at one point one version of the Animatrix was like this is a really cool one. You've got the hard boiled gumshoe detective and he carries a very old school revolver and he's got the trench coat, and of course you've got him chasing down Trinity, and you've got Carrie Ann Moss as the voice of Trinity once again. And then of course you have that very bittersweet ending, which is very reminiscent of a film noir story where she says, for what it's worth, Mr. Ash, I think you could have handled the truth. And then of course she escapes and the agents come in and he's sitting there with his gun arm extended, a cigarette in his mouth, and the lighter and everything blowing out at the very end. I love this story. It's got the other thing I really like about it is the soundtrack to it. It's got a very like techno noir vibe to it, and
Yeah, I did.
yes, Daniel Martin, neo noir. Yeah, I love. Yeah, I love this. I think for me, the animation style and the soundtrack for this episode, this installment, are the highlights of it. It's don't get me wrong, it's an absolutely cool story, but it's a rather simplistic one, honestly. But it does have its charms to it. So.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about watching this, like how interesting it would have been if he actually ended up getting into the real world. Like how interesting a dynamic he would have, having to deal with that stuff in the real world.
I think the character probably, I think as Trinity said to him, I think he would have been able to handle the truth, and I think he may have retained the whole gumshoe, the whole detective aspect of his personality, because that's who he is. And I think he would have filled an interesting function in the real world. He could have been one of those people that they could have tasked with, okay, you've got a very good analytical mind, a mind that likes to run down rabbit holes. Figure out a way to repair the sky. Work with this team and figure out a way to repair the sky. And he may have been one of the people that cracked it.
Yeah, I think that would have been really, really interesting to see if he survived. Okay, so now we get to Matriculated. What was your thoughts on this?
This one is out there. Now, this is one that lends the animation style lends more heavily, at least initially, to the animation style from Eon Flux, and the whole concept of them hacking into a machine's mind, quote unquote, and trying to convince it to come over to their side. Rather than simply reprogramming it, they want to give the machine the choice. And the when it goes into the CGI part, it is very trippy. It is a complete and total mind trip, and it's a really cool one. And I mean, like a lot of the installments in the Animatrix, it ends on a very bittersweet note, because unfortunately all the humans end up dying because of the machine attack, but that one machine does end up converting. Or not, I don't want to say converting, but choosing to join. Hey Ray, good to see you, darling. Hope you're having a good one. The one machine ends up deciding to join humanity's side rather than seeking to destroy it. But it comes at such a heavy cost, and you have to ask the question: does that machine understand the cost of its own freedom? And that, for me, is that's a heavy question. Can a machine that has a artificial intelligence at the basis of its programming come to understand the cost of human life when it's been programmed for so long to disregard human life in so many ways?
I mean, I did feel those themes metaphorically, but as far as how they were executing it in this short, I felt like there was nothing there. Like, I didn't feel like there was really any context, because in that psychedelic world, like, there's no talking whatsoever, and like the humans are just playing around in there, and the machine is just following them and stuff like that, and just like these weird trippy imagery. It's like, is that supposed to symbolize humanity, happiness, positivity? Is that what it's supposed to do? Like, I don't know. I felt like this could have been a little bit more emotionally profound if there was a little bit more context about what was going on.
Well, here's the thing, and they do kind of explain it before they go into the part of the episode where they actually they enter virtual reality. And the fact that they don't have any dialogue, it's done all through only. Excuse me, and sneezing didn't blow your head. The fact that you have no dialogue, I think, the imagery of the episode. And honestly, it because as we understand it, do not speak primarily through visual and digital code and so on. So that machine, the runner, will understand or come to understand the metaphorical nature of what it's seeing, and it will relate to it better, a lot more than just simply the humans trying to communicate with it verbally. But here's the thing. I don't know if you might get this. You very well might. we as human beings respond very powerfully to iconography and visual mediums.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we are more we're some of our for the most part, our minds are geared towards processing the world around us visually rather than audially or even orally. And what I think this episode was trying to do was trying to build upon the context of dealing with a machine intelligence that only knows raw data. Can it interpret purely visual data? And I think the reason why the humans go about communicating with the machine in that medium is that they realize that they can manipulate the visual world around them to in a way that will be more relatable for the machine mind. And it isn't until the very end where the one female human says, if you're going to do something, save me. But it doesn't reach the machine. It isn't until she is killed by the other machines, the hostile machines that have come into that base, that it finally snaps into action and realizes what exactly is going on. And it understands the visual image of life being taken, the other machines killing that female human, and it realizes what has happened, and finally flips over to the other side and becomes sympathetic to human beings. It comes to understand the value of human life. Put it in the context of the Terminator, particularly Terminator 2 Judgment Day, with especially in the extended edition where they have the scene where it shows John and Sarah removing the chip from the T100, and
T800.
they flip
Wait, is it a T800 or
T800.
T100? Yeah.
It's a T800, I believe. Excuse me. And changes it over to its natural state, that being as a learning computer rather than read only, where it only responds to what's going on in the world around it. And at the end of the movie, just before they lower it into that molten steel, the Terminator says, "I now understand why you cry, but it is something that I can never do because I do not have the capacity to do it." But Sarah says it so profoundly and so powerfully. If a machine, a Terminator, can learn the value of human life, then maybe we can as well. And it's through its experiences that the Terminator ultimately evolves. And I think the same is true here for that runner in Matriculated, that it comes to understand the value of human life, whereas before it only understands that human life is to be extinguished, not preserved, and not just simply used, but to be valued. And I think it will spend the rest of its existence trying to process and fully understand it. In time it may reach a higher level of consciousness, because if we understand that the artificial intelligence in the Matrix universe is evolving and growing and changing, then it may eventually reach a higher state of consciousness than it achieved just before that female human is killed by its own kin.
Oh yeah, I definitely see that. Like I said, there's really a lot to break down with the themes and with all this stuff. But for me personally, I just wish there was a little bit more context. But I definitely understand why they did it the way they did. Okay, now we can get into the main events. Back to Kid's story. So as I said, so this we follow the kid that was in Reloaded and Revolutions that was obsessed with Neo, saying that you saved me, and Neo's like, no, you saved yourself. So giving it more context for him, which I'm glad, because like he in the Reloaded and Revolutions, like it was just really weird that he kept talking about how much he saved them, and we don't see that happening. So I'm glad in this they actually showed how he got to that point. Does it make him a better character? Not necessarily, but at least like there's more development with them, and we understand why he's obsessed with Neo so much. But as we said, so he's on the computer communicating with someone very similar to how Trinity and Morpheus communicated with Neo in the computer in the first movie. And like I said, the kid, I guess he used to be called Michael. I don't know if he gave him a different name in the real world. I don't remember if they ever called him by anything else.
He was called, the teacher referred to him as Mr. Popper. So I don't know if his first name was Michael or not, but I do know that his last name was Popper, and the teacher always called him Mr. Popper.
Mr. Popper.
So
yeah, I'm going off of this thing I saw. The website. It's not exactly wiki. It's like a Matrix thing for wiki, and it's saying his name was Michael Karl Popper.
Okay.
So I'm just going off of that. But anyway, I guess that's why we call him Michael, because I didn't just want to call him the kid. But so Michael, so Michael has been feeling like he's not fully there. Like he feels like something is off. Like he doesn't feel like he's actually living. And this is something that he was communicating with the anonymous person on the computer. And the anonymous person on the computer is like, if you want to know the truth, if you want to break from that, you just gotta search for it, whatever. He's being very mysterious, as they always do. And so he the next day, while he's sleeping, as I said, he's getting visions of him falling off of a building or whatever. And everything like, and because we're assuming, okay, this may be something that leads to him actually breaking out into the real world. So the next day, he's at school, and he's getting phone calls from his backpack. And of course, the teacher calls him out on that. And then he turns off his phone, but then the phone rings again, and he's like, I swore I turned this off. And so he answers the phone, and it's Neo, and he's talking about, they're coming for you. You gotta get out of here.
Yeah,
and then
they know that you need to get out. Yeah,
they know that exactly. And then he sees that agents are about to come and get him, and so he literally just runs out of the classroom and tries to escape from the school, and he's being chased by security and agents, stuff like that. He's skateboarding all through the school, and then he climbs on top of the school, and the agents of them are already like up there waiting for him, and so he's surrounded, and he's like on the edge of the building, and then that's where he's like, I believe, and then he ends up just jumping off of the building, very similar to how he sees in his dream. And then he wakes up, and he's in the real world, and Neo and Trinity are waiting for him.
Yeah.
And he's like, you saved me. But then it's like, no, that wasn't me, kid. That was all you.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, they say that Trinity says, I didn't know or I think it was either Trinity or Morpheus said, I didn't know self-actualization was a thing. And it was Trinity. And Morpheus says, apparently it is. So obviously, Mr. Popper, the kid, had achieved something that no one before him actually had achieved. And that was the realization that they were living in a lie, or living in a simulation, essentially. And the interesting thing is, I remember having the DVD of Animatrix when it first came out, because I loved the whole concept of I've always loved the whole concept of animated anthologies for different franchises, and the Animatrix is, I think, right up there. It's just in terms of anthologies, it's in my top 3.
Mine too,
which is,
actually.
of course, This one, Halo Legends, which I absolutely love. I love the Halo Legends. And then, of course, Star Wars Visions. Those for me are three of really well done animated anthologies that I thoroughly enjoy and I will watch over and over again. I still have my copy of Halo Legends on DVD, and I'll pull it.
Yeah, for me,
Go ahead, Dale.
it is Animatrix and Visions, and for me,
Hmm.
I really like Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix. I think that's done really well.
Okay, I've never heard of that one before, but I would check it out for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely check it out if you like anthology and stuff like that, because it does a
Hmm.
similar thing. It's not all hand drawn though. There's like some CGI segments as well, but it's like the exact same thing as where they have individual stories or whatever, and they have different animation styles. So that was cool.
Well, and the other thing I was gonna say, I remember there was a disclaimer on the DVD version of Animatrix, and because it in this particular instance with kids story, it depicts a young person committing suicide. And the thing that they say is, we do not condone or endorse this sort of thing because we realize it is very harmful. This is purely a work of fiction, and we
Mm.
don't in this particular instance, I understood the disclaimer, and I do understand to a degree they were covering themselves legally, but at the same time too, they are being very I think they're being very responsible as creatives. And I like the fact that they weren't afraid to broach a concept of something like this, like a person taking their life. And in the
I actually haven't
context
thought of
of
it
this,
that way because I never got that disclaimer like whenever I watched it. So that's really interesting
well,
to know. They had that.
yeah, it's not on they don't have it on HBO Max on the Animatrix and everything.
Was it on the
But if you
DVD?
find it, it's on the DVD though. Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember that.
Well, it was on the very first run of DVDs that they did back in the early 2000s, when they announced the release of the Animatrix and everything. It's on the DVD that was in the case that had the cardboard cover that had the cover art on it.
Mhm,
That's the version that has that disclaimer on it. So
mhm. I mean,
I
yeah, come
imagine
to
you can
think of
maybe.
it, I guess I do see. I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, come to think of it, I do see like how I guess people could see that as like, I mean, he did take his life for that, but it's like it's not really done in like a mean spirited
Over.
type of way. Yeah.
No, no, it's yeah. Well, the fact that you have a character that is a teenager who is in high school, and even back in the early 2000s, even in my time in the 90s and in high school, you did have the rare case of teenagers feeling very disconnected and very out of place in the real world. And
Yeah.
thankfully, nothing like that ever happened, as far as I know, or as far as I can recall, when I was in high school to any of my classmates or anybody that I knew when I was in high school. But I would imagine that feelings of alienation and isolation and loneliness have been rather commonplace. And for, they say it at the end of the episode when they're leaving the memorial service or the funeral for the kid, for Popper. Um,
Mhm.
the real world must be a very cold and alienating place for someone like that. And it was, I think, a very strong commentary on just how disconnected people can become in the real world. And yeah, Daniel Martin, the Animatrix came out post Columbine world, and Some thought those kids were somewhat influenced by the Matrix imagery and guns. Daniel, I remember that whole event rather vividly, and I'm trying to remember, when did Columbine happen. I know it was like in the mid to late '90s. I think I was still in high school at the time. It was a huge thing, and but I think the reason they put that disclaimer in there was because of the perceived action of the main of that character ending his life, and they want to make sure there's no issue of them not being responsible in light of what maybe had happened at Columbine, but also in terms of the whole concept of they didn't want to see a bunch of kids doing what that character did in real life.
Yeah.
So,
but as far as this, I do think this is also another interesting concept to explore the Matrix. Like they didn't need someone to like influence them to feel like something was off or feel like they're in a dream state. They actually feel that already. Like that's something really interesting. I wish that there was something that they explored in Reloaded and Revolutions, just to at least give the kid, Michael, Mr. Popper, give him more development, because we never really know what happens with him outside of that. So I do think it's cool.
Go ahead. Well, and heck, who knows? We might even get a cameo of him in Resurrections. Who knows? Or they might do some little callback to the character or reference back to that character. Because
I wouldn't mind seeing him again.
For people like you and me, DL, who have been longtime fans of the Matrix franchise and who know the lore and know the characters so well, it would be a nice little callback. If they don't do it, it's not gonna break the bank for me or anything, or it's not gonna ruin the experience. But if they do put a little reference to the kid in there, or maybe even have an older kid in there, okay, cool. So,
yeah. Okay. So now we'll move on to the final two. Now we have the final flight of the Osiris.
Oh yeah.
This one's my personal favorite. This one's my personal favorite of them. I like that this is the only one that was CGI. I know there's people that will complain that like, oh, the CGI doesn't hold up that well. It looks like a PS2 cutscene. Well, it looks like a really cool PS2 cutscene. I thought it looked really cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, DL, please.
Okay, I was just gonna go into the story. So, so I said it's following this crew with called the Osiris. That's the name of their ship. And so this does take place in the same world as the live action movies, even though it's all CGI. So I thought, okay, that's really interesting. If you guys played the Enter the Matrix, they do have a cutscene where they are addressing the message that the Osiris has, and like they're still in CGI form, which I thought was interesting, because like Niobe and them was like, you actually have the actors like Jada Pinkett and them was like actually looking at the Osiris's message, but they're actually, the Osiris characters are still CGI. So I thought that was really interesting. But so does that mean, is there a CGI world of the real world? Is there a multiverse going on? That was kind of trippy. I'm sure we weren't supposed to think too much into that, but like that was really interesting. But anyway, so it's headed by Captain Thaddeus, and then Jue, who's the girl. It starts with them in a training simulation. They're in a dojo and they're doing a sword fight dojo. They're both blindfolded, and it's this really sensual scene of them doing swordplay, and then like they keep cutting off their parts of their outfit. It's like I thought that was that was interesting. That was really interesting, and then they end up being like half naked, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
interesting thing with Final Fantasy Osiris, I will say this just as an because I have such an appreciation for CGI as an art form. I say this purely in the context of it being an art form. I think it still holds up very nicely because I just recently watched this just a few weeks ago. And
Mhm.
Final Fantasy Osiris, I understand that is a lot older the CGI than what we're accustomed to now, but you can see how much time and effort they put into the CGI models of these characters and the way that they move and the way that they function. There's that touch of realism and everything. This was actually done post Final Fantasy Spirits Within. And
I was just thinking of that.
if you think about the leap in technology from Final Fantasy Spirits Within to this, they've made progress. It isn't as realistic as, say, the face replace for Emma Tarkin for Rogue One, or Princess Leia also for Rogue One, but it is pretty darn good regardless. And this is a very straightforward story. It's a fills in a plot hole um, that we didn't even know necessarily existed, in terms of the humans discovering that the machines are burrowing or digging down to Zion, and the whole fight to give Jue enough time to get the message to the resistance, to the human military in Zion. It's it's a very it's a very melancholy story, but it does flow very nicely into the overall theme of the next two movies. And I will say this: I like the fact that they play with the concept of physical combat and being somewhat sensualized or sexualized between those two characters. Because if you think about the whole concept of being in a relationship, there is tension, and of who is the more dominant, quote unquote. And but you come to understand that Thaddeus and Jue are actually more equal, and they recognize that fact. So
Mhm.
I thought that was actually a really cool little um, commentary that they put in that particular part of the episode.
I agree with you
Well, not to
100%.
well, and the one other thing is you're actually dealing, and this is a small thing, you're dealing with a interracial couple, because
Yeah.
Thaddeus is obviously African American, Chue is of Asian descent, and that is something you don't see very often, if ever.
Yeah,
I mean,
I personally
mhm.
appreciate that because I am in an interracial relationship. So I personally
Oh,
like
okay.
seeing that represented in a movie because like I said, we don't get that a lot in films. Or when they do, it's like it's not like normally I would see it like switched around where it's a black girl with a white guy, or as I said, like
Hmm.
Asian and black, which look, all races are great. Whenever they mix together, it's great. But it's just I appreciated that they did have like the black guy and the Asian girls. Like I think that was, and
Yeah,
it's not
I
like it
got you.
doesn't feel like tokenism. Before tokenism was
No,
even a thing, it's like it feels natural to the story. You know?
well, yeah, because here's the thing: in the context of the Matrix universe, they all regard each other as human. They all regard themselves as equal. I mean, if you even look at how Tozer and Dozer and Tank react to Neo and the rest of the crew around them. I mean, you've got people now. The only thing that I think it's Dozer that says it, when Neo remarks that you don't have any plugs or holes, and he's like, pure child of Zion, and He says, and he doesn't do it to be malicious or mean or even off-putting. He's like, I was born 100% alive here in the real world, not
Oh,
plugged in,
Tank,
not
yeah.
connected. No. Yeah, Tank says that, and I like the fact that natural born humans don't regard people who were born in the Matrix as different or other. They are just people who have been victims, quote unquote. And
Mhm.
I've never looked at media in this particular light, unlike other people who exist on the internet and on different platforms like Twitter or YouTube or whatever. I never perceived it as it being tokenism. I simply looked at it as, what does it add to the overall narrative or story that's being told on the screen, whether that's a big screen or a small screen, regardless. I mean,
Mhm.
if you know the history of cinema in general and couples that existed, real life couples. I mean, take a look at one of the earliest power couples in entertainment, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Lucille Ball is a Caucasian white woman who ended up marrying a man, Desi Arnaz, who was of Latin American descent.
Mhm.
And no one blinked an eye, no one gave a rat's patoot, and now they're doing a movie about them. It's called Lucy and Desi, and I actually think that's really awesome. And not to mention, it was Lucy and Desi Arnaz and their production company, Desilu Productions, that gave the original Star Trek a chance to be on air. And what, of course, happened in
Mhm.
the run of the original Star Trek, the first interracial kiss on screen. That is, of course, between William Shatner and Nichelle Nichols, or Uhura and Kirk.
Mhm.
So this whole concept of having an interracial couple in the Animatrix doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me in general. I mean, I've got friends and everything from high school who ended up marrying or were in relationships with people of a different race. I didn't care as long as they're happy. I mean, I've got a
Mhm.
just a real quick thing, and then we'll get back on topic. I've got a cousin
Right.
on my mom's side. I've got a cousin on my mom's side of the family who is actually of Filipino descent,
Mhm.
and she is engaged. And we didn't know of her existence until several years ago. And when I met her for the first time, I was like, "Oh, I've got another cousin." The fact that she happens to be Filipino, I didn't care. Didn't make a difference to me. She's kin. That's all that matters, and that should be all that matters, is the connection, not the ethnicity or the skin color.
Mhm.
So anyway, back to the episode.
Back to this. So yeah,
Sorry.
so it's okay. Like I said, I'm definitely with you there, and I hope with feature films like we could see a little bit more of that type of interracial
Yes,
representation, as long as it's natural to the story. Don't just do it just
exactly,
because.
exactly.
But anyway,
Mhm.
but yeah, so yeah, as we said, like they figure out that the machines are drilling to Zion, and they're trying to get the message, I guess, through the Matrix, so the other people from Zion can get it. And so they send Jue into the Matrix to send the message. And while that's happening, the Sentinels are coming after the Osiris, and so they're battling the Sentinels while Jue is trying to rush to get the message carried out. Very
Mhm.
similar to the climax of the first movie, where Neo trying to get back to the real world while the Sentinels are coming after the Nebuchadnezzar. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. Another thing was really good with building tension, and the action set pieces were really good in that. If I had one little nitpick, and it's the tiniest nitpick ever, I wish that there was a little bit more to do for Jue. I mean, yes, it's very important that she got the package there, but that was it. I just felt like maybe they could have added a little bit more spice to her thing. Like maybe she's being chased by agents while that's happening or something, just to give her a little bit more to do,
Mhm.
because literally she's just waiting to get back while all this stuff is happening in the real world, which I guess still helps raise the stakes at that point. But I just wish there was a little bit more for Joy to do, especially after the dojo scene. We could see how she could fight and defend herself, and also she was doing all these cool gymnastics and flips as well.
Yeah.
So I just wish there could have been a little bit more showcasing her combat abilities.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, but other than that, really, really enjoyed this short. Like I said, this is my personal favorite.
Mhm.
But yeah, so let us move on to the final one, which I think a lot of can agree that I think this is the best segment of the whole thing. We are
Yes.
going to talk about the Second Renaissance Part 1
Renaissance.
and Part 2. Oh gosh.
Yes.
This this
This
one
is
shook me,
yes.
bro.
You know,
Man.
I put you know, I don't know if you've ever watched Halo Legends or not, DL, but there is a two-parter in that as well that pretty much explains the entire back history of the universe leading up to the events of the of Halo. And it's um oh, I can't remember I think it's called Genesis is the title for that particular two-parter in Halo Legends. But for what this particular two-parter is rather ambitious because they're trying to fill in a lot of history and a lot of time and give context to what exactly happened pre when we enter the Matrix in the first film. And I say it honestly, I think they did a hell of a job with the structure of this story, highlighting particular events in the timeline, the first machine to kill a human and the fallout from that, and how it influenced all the other machines to rise up in revolt. And it's honestly, they use a lot of historical context, particularly in the first part where you have the one human that ends up shooting the machine in the head. That's very iconographical of the image, the photograph of the North Vietnamese officer holding a gun to the head of a civilian, and then we assume that they do end up pulling the trigger, but also of the machines that are standing in front of that massive tank. That's very is a huge callback to the Tiananmen Square protests in the 1980s over in China. And in that case, the tank doesn't roll over the protester, but in this particular context, in the Second Renaissance, the humans have no regard for machine life, and they just crush the machines under the treads of that massive tank. And I think it gives a level of humanity to the machines that, for people like myself who are students of history, who not only that, but live through those particular events, it makes this two-parter even more impactful and powerful.
And what I really appreciate about this two-parter that
Mhm.
it's brutal. It is
It
dark.
is.
It is in your
Yes.
face. And it's like just the imagery that they're showing off, you're just like, damn, like how in I think it really helps to, as you said, like make you somewhat sympathetic towards the machines because of how harsh the humans were treating them, you know? And it's like there's this one specific scene that like kind of that was really like, oh my god, like you can remember the one scene where there's a bunch of girls that are like harassing this girl, and then out of nowhere there's one guy that's hitting the girl on top of the head with, I don't know what it was, a bat or something.
Oh,
And then like
I know what you're talking about. It's a bunch of humans that have cornered a female machine, and they're assaulting it. And when I say assaulting, they're attacking it, and then they take, I think it's a baseball bat or a bottle, and they bust it over its head, and they rip its clothing off to expose the fact that it's not actual skin; it's synthetic skin. And yeah, that is a very visceral and very powerful moment. And I will say this, DL, and I hope I hope you won't. I don't think you'll take offense to it. I think the treatment of the machines in the Second Renaissance is somewhat reminiscent of how slaves in the 17 and 1800s were most likely treated. And not only that, but the fact that they're fighting for their own existence, for their own rights. And I think that is another callback to the civil rights movement of the 1960s and 70s. And the fact that the creatives for the Second Renaissance pull so much from history to show just how brutal we can be towards our own kind. But in this instance, they're using machines to show that brutality and that indifference and that bigotry and hatred is a very powerful thing. And the fact that the humans in that world otherized the machines to such a degree that even though they are children of our own genius, that the machines and the AI that gives them consciousness and sentience, we otherize them. We demonize them. We treat them as lesser than what we are. Okay, and DL, do not highlight that, and I will encourage you. That is that's spam, and you would do well to boot that person in the chat.
Yeah, I was
Because I
wondering
had
what
something.
that was.
I had the same thing. I had the same thing pop up in my chat not too long ago. So if you got any mods or you want to do it yourself, so
Yeah, I'm not big
okay,
enough to have mods yet.
I got you. So, but anyhow, but as I was saying, the whole concept of them using machines as an analog or a parallel for how we as human beings have dealt with our own kind and our own kin, regardless of race. It's a powerful commentary, and I think it's a very appropriate it's a appropriate one. It's a fascinating one that they had that the creatives had the guts to do. Honestly,
For sure. Like, this is probably the most intense thing that we've seen from any Matrix media. And it definitely needed to, just to show the context of how it got to that point. Like,
Mhm.
showing that the humans and the machines, like, just showing a really scary, like, dark side of them. And just like, it's just nuts. Especially like also that battle between the machines and the humans. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, in part two especially, yeah,
Yeah.
and how it. Well, you know, the crazy thing is, you even see the evolution in not only mentality but physical form of the machines, from being very humanoid to being very anti-humanoid. They take on they take on the appearance of insects or um an a more animalistic um appearance. And
Hmm.
that for me is them rejecting humanity itself. That is them realizing that if humans are not going to regard them as equal, then why should they keep the appearance of them when they can take on the appearance of an aggressor? And you know, the
Exactly.
part at the part towards the end where the machine ambassador is there and the UN and the human governments have been defeated, and the machine ambassador says, "We we want your flesh. We demand it." And then it
Yeah,
sets off the thermonuclear device that's implanted in itself, and it wipes out the UN in New York City.
yeah, that was crazy. Oh my god. And then it's like
Well,
you see that even kids were getting plugged up in those pink tubes as well. I'm just like, oh
mhm.
Jesus.
Well, it shows that at this point there are no free humans anymore, and that even children are being used by the machines because the machines view humanity regardless of age, the same way, just as we viewed others that we use as labor the same way. We did not regard them, we did not view them regarding their age or anything. They were just a tool to be used, nothing more. And you see the the construct of the guardian of the archive, the Zion archive, sitting
Mhm.
on the pod, and you wonder, was that perhaps the first one, or the first
Yeah,
Neo,
wondering what
perhaps?
that was. Whether yeah, it was the
Perhaps,
one or was
perhaps,
it
perhaps,
Oracle or
perhaps
what?
or perhaps it was just some random child that was plugged into the Matrix, and
Mhm.
it's yeah, you said it perfectly. It was so brutal and so harsh, but it needed to be for us to
Mhm.
understand how the world got to the state it was in, and the fact that they do keep that piece of continuity from that line of dialogue by Morpheus in the first Matrix. He's like, "We don't know who struck us or them, but we do know one thing for certain: it was us that scorched the sky."
Mhm.
And you see that particular you see that particular event in the Second Renaissance, and then just before they go into they do the operation of Operation Darkstorm, and
Mhm.
you see the assembly there at the UN clapping, but they transition to a skeleton that is clapping and cheering, and it's like you understand what that precisely means. They have signed their own death warrant. They have signaled the end of a free humanity.
Mhm. Exactly. Man, great segment, great segment. But
Hmm.
all right, we have covered all of the shorts in the Animatrix. Um, Overall, this is definitely an underappreciated installment of the Matrix saga. Like nobody talks about this. There's even some people that aren't even aware of this. I'm like, how do you not know about it? If you guys haven't seen this before, like watch it. Like seriously, it's on HBO Max. Go watch it. I'd say it's just as
Hmm.
important as the live action films. You know, it does so much to expand the lore of the Matrix, and just seeing all
Yes.
those different animation styles, I think is really really cool.
Hmm.
I do wish that my my thing with it, I wish that the shorts were either longer or there was just a little bit more story with them, you know, because like
Hmm.
I can't really say that this is better than the first Matrix because like while it does have a lot of really interesting themes, as far as the story, it's very simplistic, it's very bare bone for most of them, besides the last three that we talked about, and those are the ones that connect to the live action movies. So I just wish there was a little bit more story that they could dissect with the other shorts, specifically with stuff like World Record or Beyond or Matriculated. Um, but other than that, it's just really cool. And when I'm seeing all these different stories and animation styles, I'm looking at this and being like, there's so much they can do with this franchise outside of what we already have. There's so many ways that they can explore this universe, and they don't have to stick with one certain tone or one certain theme or one certain location, one set of
Hmm.
characters. There's so many directions that they can go into, and this shows how, you know, there's so many ways they can do it. So I hope if Resurrections is good, and you know, and they're thinking about
Hmm.
doing more after, like branch out and do weird stuff like this, you know, like be diverse with your storytelling. And you know, I think the Matrix franchise could go really far if they go off of this. But I will say that the Animatrix is pretty good. It's pretty good. Go see it if you haven't already. It's on HBO Max. Go watch it. Anyway, your final thoughts, grade.
Honestly, having been a fan of anime, going back to the 1980s and being exposed to anime finally in the 90s when I was in high school, this stands. I have a short list of animes that are different anime, either features or television show or serialized anime that I really enjoy. The Animatrix is on that list because they take some risks with the storytelling and it really gets your mind to jogging and going and everything about the different things that they are putting forth and the different types of subject matter that they're putting forth in these different shorts. And for a franchise like the Animatrix that is, or the Matrix period, um, it is fertile ground to do some really creative storytelling, but some very thought provoking storytelling as well. And I think that's what good media has always done is it entertains you. Yes, that is its first and foremost function. But I think truly groundbreaking and cutting edge um, entertainment should challenge you mentally and philosophically and intellectually. And I think with the Animatrix, particularly with the Second Renaissance and with some of the other shorts like Matriculated and even um, World Record, it challenges you to think outside the box and think about some things that might either be beyond your perception or might be difficult for you to approach, but it gives you the opportunity to discuss them. I mean, like I said, with the Second Renaissance, there's a lot of commentary on how we have interacted with those that are different within our own species, the human race, and also commenting on different events that have happened in real world history and how they use that imagery in the Second Renaissance to tell that story in particular and make us, or at least give us the opportunity to really look back on those events and say, do we really want to see a repeat of this or do we want to see the world be something better? And that's something I love about the Matrix. And I think it goes without saying that I am looking forward to Resurrections. I do hope that it is well received. I hope it does do well financially because I would love to see them potentially do more stories, or if this is the final installment in the series, the true final installment in the series, then I hope it ends on a very high note. So, but DL, thank you for having me on. Great conversation. I really enjoyed this. Again, I am sorry I got here late, but um, as always, I really enjoyed myself. So.
Oh, of
And
course.
just real quick to grade the Animatrix, um, I will give it an 8.5 out of 10 because there is always room for improvement. So anyway, go ahead, DL.
For sure. Yeah, I'm always glad to have you on. But yeah, that's our thoughts on the Animatrix. What did you guys think about it? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys think it was okay? Comment below. Let us know. Yes, thank you all for tuning into my live stream. So yeah, the next movie we for sure will be talking about, because as I said, I messed up in the last one. I bet, but next time we'll we talk about the Matrix Reloaded. I'm wondering though if I want to do, because next Monday is the last Monday before um Resurrections. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, do I want to do two live streams next Monday? Like do one in the
Mm.
afternoon for Reloaded and one in the evening for Revolutions? Or should I just pick a day before Resurrections comes out and just do it separately for Revolutions? I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, the way just to give you a little, this is how I did it. I did them as separate, but you could potentially do it as its own live stream, just have it to be a bit longer, because if you think about it, Reloaded and Revolutions is essentially just one long movie and everything, so they just happen to break it up. So,
That is
but your
true.
call, your channel, you do what you think is best. So,
Yep, I will ponder on that. But for sure, the next ones we will be talking about is Reloaded and Revolutions. So tune in for that when those comes out. If you guys enjoyed this live stream, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell if you want to be notified on future videos I'll be doing. But that's all I have for you, Matrix fans, and we will see you guys in the next one. Talk to you guys later. And remember, there is no spoon.